Hi there, welcome to 2 for Tuesdays. I'm Mo McClanahan and I am the Director of Training and Education with the Safe Surfing Foundation. I am also a high-tech crime specialist with the National White Collar Crime Center. And prior to both of these positions, I worked 20 years in law enforcement with the last 8.5 working internet crimes against children. We started the 2 for Tuesday with the Safe Surfing Foundation last year during the pandemic when we just knew that parents were probably feeling overwhelmed and anxious when it came to electronics, especially with our little ones being on Chromebooks and possibly not really being ready to understand what all they had access to on the internet. And so we come every first and third Tuesday of each month to share a couple tips with you. We'll talk about something, hot topic that's been in the news, or maybe something that has been asked to us through some messages. And today we are going to talk about what happens after your kids send nude pictures, or if they were pressured to send them, if they voluntarily sent them, whatever the case might be. We've been receiving some messages about that, especially with school starting back. This is definitely one of those things that I've seen over the years that increases, at least the reports of it increasing when kids are back in school. Reason being that once it's sent, then maybe other kids are going to start talking about it. It's being reshared. And so it becomes something that is brought up to administration, or maybe the kids are feeling a little bit more embarrassed than if nobody else really knew that they sent it to the person they sent it to. And so I'm here to really give you some peace of mind that if this is happening, if your child has sent a nude image, I want you to, one, not panic. Again, this is something that's happening worldwide. It's unfortunate. It's something that a lot of kids are it's like the new peer pressure. At the same time, most of the time, it doesn't really go beyond sending these pictures, especially if it's with friends or people that they already know within school or sports or something like that. But when it does become something more is when the person on the other line or the other end of the conversation, you don't know who it is. And so that's when I want to encourage you to possibly report it. Look at the conversation around the messages where these images were being sent. What kind of images are being received by your child? Do you believe it's another child sending these images? Could the images possibly be fake and maybe it's an adult on the other end? These are some of the things I really want you to start thinking about when it comes to this, because in an estimate of child predators online, they are victimizing between 150 to 300 kids at a time. And so I know you don't want to be, that family where your child's being, their case is being investigated and their pictures are being looked at through law enforcement. But reporting it could possibly not only give a voice to your child to take back control if they are being pressured to send these images, but also give that voice to some of these other children that have been victimized and it hasn't been found out and they don't have a voice, or maybe it's in a situation where they feel threatened if they were to tell. So there's been so many different cases where the child does disclose possibly sending these images, and through the investigation they were determined that it was an adult on the other end and there was multiple victims. And you taking charge of really just helping your child, to encourage them to be a voice for themselves, to stick up for themselves, make the report, especially if you're reporting it first. That way, if the investigation comes through the other end and then your child's discovered throughout the other end of the investigation and then they're approaching you, it may look a little different. So I want to encourage you to be on the offense and, again, make these reports. Now, you can report it several different ways. So you can report it locally through your agency where you live, or you can report it through the agency of where the other person lives if you know who it is on the other end. And then there's another way to report it, and that is through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they have what's called a cyber tip line. So if you go to cybertipline.org, then there's a form that you can fill out, and you supply as much information that you have based on the username, the platform that these images were taken on and sent and received, and then they can start working on the investigation part of it and getting that report in the hands of law enforcement through those different jurisdictions. Now, the other thing that's important to recognize is that once your child's image is out there, unfortunately, it's out there. We can't take it back. You can't delete it off of the internet. But what we can do, and what law enforcement's been doing for years, is once we can identify it, so if we have the device that your child took those images on, and we are able to retrieve those images, they get sent into a database where it's being tracked forever. And it's tracked based on not just the image, but based on that specific, it's called a hash value. But what it is really a DNA stamp for that image. And so we can track computers throughout the future of anyone that possesses that file and that image of your child. And then we can prosecute them based on them having that specific image. Even if your child is as an adult, that image can still be tracked, and people can be prosecuted based on your child submitting this report and acknowledging that this image has been sent and it is of them. And that's really how I was able to do my work through the Internet Crimes Against Children for many years, where children admitted to these images. They were in this database, and we were able to track them on computers, 10, 15 years later. So there is still hope that, people who are in possession of these images can be prosecuted, and that your child can move on and have this closure. Another option is, talk to your child, see if there was any kind of trauma behind it, any kind of emotional abuse or psychological abuse, and get them the help that they need. Get them some counseling, maybe reach out to a school counselor and see if there is something that they can really sit down and talk with your child about, and ask them if they want to prosecute, because again, this might give them a little bit of that closure. If it was something with a friend that they knew, and maybe it's not something that you want to go completely through an investigation with, I totally understand that. But at the same time, we don't know what that person did with that image. So I still want to encourage to, again, report it to local law enforcement, sit down with them, discuss some of the options, and really make sure that you're getting that closure for your child to make sure that they can progress on. Again, this is something that's been going on for many years, and we try to really educate our kids to help them understand the consequences when it comes to making choices like this, that it can be very dangerous and it could be something that lives with them for a long time. But I want you to know that, life goes on, that children, or you as parents, don't need to panic, that you can be there for your child. They've not done anything wrong. They've just made some mistakes, and you just need to guide them to be making safer choices online. And I want you to walk away with some, 2 of my tips. And this is one of my bottom line guideline or rule that I've been giving for many years. And number 1 is, do not allow electronics inside of their bedroom or the bathroom. Reason being, if you think about any kind of naked images, they're not going to be taking those in the living room when everybody's there. They're not going to be doing it in the kitchen when you're in there making dinner. So if they are not in a place of privacy or believing they have privacy, then they're less likely to make that decision. And so you being there present anytime that they have access to their electronics, that is going to be key. And my other tip or rule of thumb is that a child under the age of 13 technically doesn't need a smart device. All the apps, most of the apps, I should say, most of social media and any of the apps that kids are using, you actually have to be 13 to be on those platforms. And even though we're not sitting there reading the terms of services and the privacy policy, that is for their protection, because apps and devices, they're all tracking what your children are doing. And so you as the parent need to keep that in your control and limit what other people can see of your children, what they can learn about your children, and really just keep them safe. So I hope these were helpful tips, and that you can go back to this video, share it with other people if you know somebody that's going through the same issue with their kids sharing inappropriate images or nude images. If you're not quite sure what to do, you can also send me a message here at Safe Surfing, and also contact your local authorities to really get some better guidelines. And if you need some maybe community outreach or some education in your schools. We also provide an amazing program that helps equip and empower our kids to make safe choices while accessing technology, and that's called Cyber SWAT. And you can click the link in our bio, and I'll include it in the show notes, that you can learn a little bit more about it and how to implement it in your community and in your schools. So thanks for joining me tonight. I hope this was helpful. And again, let's get back to it takes a village to really raise our kids, especially in this crazy technology world. And we're all living busy lives, so let's look out for each other. If you know somebody that could benefit from this broadcast, please share it. And we'll see you next time here on 2 for Tuesday. Have a great night.